Hey, Amy, thanks for joining us.
Hey, oh, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show today. How you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. You know, being in recovery, you get to feel all your feelings. So it's a bit like, woo, you know, maybe
Oh,
that's just
yeah.
my mood disorder.
All right. So tell us exactly how you're feeling today.
Um, I've been in a little bit of a funk, to be honest with you,
Okay,
but
I like
what
that.
I've learned from program is to just, yeah, you show up anyway.
Okay.
You don't let
Where's
your feelings dictate your actions anymore. It's like I do what I need to do. I show up to meetings. I show up to, for my sponsees. I show up to, you know, podcasts. I, do what I need to do. I get my eyelash extensions done for you. Hello, whatever. I just do what I need to do. I don't, mope around. It's like if you wait to feel ready to do anything, you wait forever. And your feelings change all the time. So it's like you've got to just stick to action and stay on course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well,
That's what.
folks, just so you know, today we have Amy Dresner joining us on the SHAIR podcast. Amy is a former professional stand-up comic, having appeared at the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, and the Improv. Since 2012, she has been a contributing editor of the online addiction and recovery magazine, The Fix. She's also written for the Good Men Project, the Frisky, Refinery 29, and has been a regular contributor to addiction.com and psychologytoday.com, where she has her own addiction blog entitled Coming Clean. My Fair Junkie is her debut book, and that is what we're going to be diving into today. Now, does that sound about right, Amy?
That sounds right.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
so,
Did
so
good.
good. Well, to expand on that, and my listeners, right? It's like, what's the skinny? Like, what's real? Like, what do people go through? I'm the host of the SHAIR podcast. I've been doing this for 3 years. You're someone. What's your clean date?
January 2nd, 2013.
2013. So you've got. You just
I have five
celebrated
years.
5 years. Okay.
5 years, and it's not my first time around. Not my
It's not,
first rodeo, as
it's
they
not,
say.
okay. Not my
No,
first rodeo.
for me, yeah, relapse has been a big part of my story. I've been in and out for 20 years. I've had big chunks of clean time, and then I just eat shit again, and then I come back. But I keep coming back, and I think that's what's really important, is that you just keep coming back, and you don't like get caught up in the hierarchy of the rooms or clean time or what people think about you. Like, ooh, I gotta be queen of the drunks. What are people gonna think about me? It's like, fuck that. You're here to save your life. It's like you're not in competition with anybody else. And so I just keep coming back, and finally kind of stuck. But I had to sort of lose everything to have a real shift that I needed.
Well, that's
Some of us
why
are stubborn like that.
I know. But that's one of the reasons why when you mentioned, I'm okay, right? Here's someone who is an author, who is successful, who has just launched a book, has been doing a bunch of podcast interviews, has got 5 years clean, and you're kind of like, I'm all right? So I want the listeners to know that it's okay, that it's not always going to be, rainbows and orgasms.
It's not at all. Life is still in session, and you're unfortunately, you have to feel every single fucking thing. There's no numbing it out except napping. That's my new thing. I'm going to start Napaholics Anonymous. I'm serious. When I just can't deal, I just unplug. I'm like, fuck this. I'm turning my brain off, and I just fucking go to bed. People are like, you sleep a lot. I'm like, that's why I look young. Fuck you. That's why I look young. But, it beats putting a needle in your arm or, whatever.
No.
Like getting on Tinder, fucking some 25-year-old in the backseat of your car or whatever. other bad coping mechanisms I used to use.
Used to use?
No, I've been celibate since my breakup. In April. I got.
So that you're coming up on a year?
Addict. Yeah, I was a sex addict, and then I fell in love, and I got my heart broken, and I've been sort of closed for renovation since. I've been really promoting the book, working on the book, and the promotion part, which is so, as a writer, it's really uncomfortable to be like, buy my book. It's very Garmento Jew, hey, buy my book. I hate it so much, but it's part of it. You have to do it.
I so get it.
So
I so
yeah,
get
life
it.
is in session, and it's like, I mean, a big reason I used was because I had big feelings, and I am sort of depressive, so I liked, meth and coke and stuff that sort of made you go up. I was like, oh, this is like Prozac with wings. This is the shit. Why aren't psychiatrists giving me this? Works way better than any of the antidepressants. Hello, except you get epilepsy and lose your teeth, and go dumpster diving, and other bad stuff happens. But
We'll get into that. We'll get
yeah,
into that a little bit later.
yeah. I mean, the whole thing is, it's like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. And to feel, to feel that and not do anything about it. That's what I've really learned in sobriety. It's like, oh, wow, this is going to pass, and I can feel my feelings and do nothing about them.
Well, other than the
Instead of trying to
napping,
fix it.
what are your other?
It's a real problem. I don't know. Oh, it's a real fucking problem.
I don't see anything fucking wrong with a nap.
Maybe I'm just old.
Dude, I will gladly become a prominent member of Napping Anonymous.
Napholics Anonymous.
Absolutely, I'm down with it.
Will you co-chair with me?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And cool. I consider that a life hack. So as far as and self-care. So what other self-care, life hacking sort of rituals do you have other than the napping?
I recently started meditating again, finally.
Mm-hmm.
I had stopped because it made me feel too good, which is so alcoholic, isn't it? Right? Like, I feel too good, I'm going to stop doing what's working. That's so what we do.
That's crazy talk.
You don't identify with that?
I absolutely identify with that, but it's crazy talk. What no, I hear you, but it was feeling so good you stopped.
Yeah, it was like, so I finally got back into that, like meditating and other self-care. I get massages. I get like cheap massages for like $30 and have someone who doesn't speak English rub me down and just like, and I take naps and.
Yeah, I used to get those too before I got married.
I don't mean those kinds. I mean the happy ending kind. I know the guy made me feel so good that I tried to hug him after, and he was so freaked out. This Thai guy was like, "Oh my God." I've been going to this one place for like a year, and I just realized that I just been putting my like shit in like on the floor, like in a heap, like my clothes and my purse in a heap on the ground, like a heathen. And I just realized that there's drawers that you put your stuff in. I was like, I asked my friend, I said, did you know that there were drawers that you were supposed to put your purse and your pants and your shirt? She goes, of course, I'm not blind. And I was like, well, it's dark. And I mean, I just didn't, that's me. Just kind of like,
Fair enough.
Anyway.
Fair enough. We're going to deviate fast from that conversation. So on top of that, I also like to ask my guests what their normal daily routine looks like. So as much as you can, somebody who's as busy as you are, what kind of a routine do you manage to keep throughout the week?
Well, I still have a job editing. So 3 days a week I edit.
Mm-hmm.
I moonlight for an evolutionary psychology-based love advice columnist.
Cool.
So I learn a lot of science. It's really interesting. So I do that from home. I work from home, which is, I don't know how different that is from house arrest. It feels very similar, Not
like, for me, it doesn't.
No, I never had house arrest. I'm assuming. I'm like, you don't leave the house and you're afraid to leave the house. I secretary a meeting on Monday nights. I have 2 sponsees. I go to meetings. I call my sponsor. I do step work. As much as I sort of, give AA a hard time in my book, I'm very much about it. It's like I mostly bash the fellowship because there are some like creepers. You know what I mean? It's a bunch of sick people getting better together. So it's like, of course, they put down booze and drugs, and what are they going to pick up? Sex and gambling and So, I mean, I just think wherever there's like a power hierarchy, there's going to be like sexual predatory behavior, so.
I love that you just said that. I just had this conversation recently with one of my friends at the meeting. We were just talking about that. Yeah, because I've got the SHAIR Facebook private group, the SHAIR Recovery Network that's got over 4,200 people in it, right? Amazing. All recovering addicts. And so she's like, it's amazing how, people have a tough time going to meetings. I go, look, to be honest with you, they feel safer inside the private group, the Facebook group, because there's no creepers, right? They
Yeah.
go to, we encourage them to go to meetings because I'm lonely
Yeah.
and I'm feeling like I'm going to relapse, or, you know, I'm on the brink. And then we're like, go
Yeah.
to a meeting. And if they're a girl in her 20s and good looking,
Oh, forget it.
they come back going, I just had some guy like creeping on me. Or
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
them going, you know, I spilt more drugs than you did.
Oh God, right?
You see
All
what I'm
that kind of
saying?
bullshit. Of course. Well, that's the weird part about the program is like, you know, there's this weird reverse pride of like, how low was your bottom? There's a pride in how low your bottom was. There are people who are like, well, I just drank and I got a DUI. Do I belong here? I didn't shoot coke in my neck. You know, it's like, you know, I'm serious, but it's like, you know, that sexual predatory behavior happens in well, we see it in Hollywood. It's really happening now in Hollywood. We see it, you know, it's in the military, it's in universities, wherever, it's everywhere. And AA is a microcosm of the real world, and probably more the sicker people. No one's like going in there on their winning streak. They're not like, I got it together. I'm going to sit in, you know, shitty, you know, church basements and drink undrinkable coffee with people who, you know, can't stop drinking, you know. It's like, you know, no one's, you know, it's so, but I mean, so there's a funny part in my book where I got this Black lesbian sponsor and I was like fucking a lot of people in the rooms because, you know, you want validation and you want to check out. And when you're newly sober, you're so uncomfortable. So, you know, everyone's smoking and everyone's, you know, so it's like, and she just was like, you only go into gay meetings and women's meetings, baby. And I was like, well, how am I going to get laid doing that? And she's like, you're going to concentrate on recovery. And I'm like, well, that sounds boring. And so I was going to all women's meetings and this man walked in and all the women goes, excuse me, but this is a women's meeting. And she's like, I am a woman. And it was like a very butchy lesbian. And I was like, hello. And I'm so not gay. I completely crushed out on her. And she wouldn't have anything to do with me. She was just like, oh my God. She's like, you're crazy. You're straight. You're a newcomer. I'm like, so you're saying I've got a chance here. You know, we'll fixate on anything.
Anything.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I'm not even gay. And I'm like, oh my God, she can fix cars and she'll listen to Tori Amos and she'll eat ice cream at night and I'll get a backpack and move to San Francisco and, you know, whatever. I was like all about it. I'm like, I'll watch the L Word. I can change. Be what you want. God.
Oh man, that is so, I love it. I love it. Brutal honesty. It's so true. We come into these rooms and you put down the drugs, you put down the alcohol, and you're trying to fix on everything else. Coffee, donuts, sex, food, you know, whatever, you know, gambling. You go off.
It's all the same thing though. It's all of like, how do I check out? And I have this line in my book where I'm like, you know, I figured out the sort of recipe, the formula to my addiction. I put something in my body and I change my feelings. It doesn't matter if it's a Xanax or a donut or a dick. You know what I mean? It's like all the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I check out? How do I check out? You know, and it's like,
beautiful.
So
beautiful.
People are like, whoa, you know, I sit at meetings, they're like, whoa. It's like,
well, you could,
really?
In my meetings, you would have them rolling in the aisles. We have some real twisted meetings over here. They're beautiful. Absolutely
That's
beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Fight your shit. I don't like that. It's like, really? We were people who were shooting dope in our fucking feet. Like, let's get real. Let's not like.
We had a couple of business meetings where they tried to take the F word. They tried to take cursing out of the meeting.
God.
It got voted out. And it was one of the nastiest fights you would even imagine.
So stupid.
Yeah. If you can't say fuck in a meeting, then, you know, you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not church.
Yeah, this ain't church. This is not. Yeah. Okay. I love it. We're on the same page here. All right, so we're going to start diving into your story, but before I let you go into your complete story, I want you to tell us real quick about the first time you drank or used drugs, and more importantly, how it made you feel.
Okay, the first time I drank, I was 19, and I was in college, and I drank, you know, Greyhounds, and I fell down, and I laughed, and it was fine. I didn't have like that feeling of like, oh, you know, but the first time I did crystal meth at 24, you know, actually it was the second time, the first time I did crystal meth, it made me feel kind of grindy and weird. And I was like, ew, I don't like that. But of course, you know us, it's like, oh, I don't like that. I'm going to try it 45 more times. So I tried it again. And the second time I had that click and I thought, oh, I want to feel like this forever. I feel normal. I feel pretty enough. I have energy. I'm not depressed. I'm creative. I'm confident. Oh, this is, you know, this is it. And that sort of vortex opened up inside me. And I just, that was it.
Oh man, beautiful.
And,
That was what I was looking for right there, Amy. All right, so you are all warmed up. So it's time for me to turn this show over to you. It's time for you to share your story, your battle against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life when you hit rock bottom, and then finally your journey.
Time?
And then then your rock bottoms, and then your journeys into recovery up until today. So Amy, please take it away.
Okay. Like I said, I just had 5 years. I was introduced to the program at 24. I really didn't like drinking because I blacked out immediately, and it made me very, very out of control and violent and naked and scary. And so I'd be like, So I preferred drugs where at least I could sort of stay sort of cogent. I really liked crystal meth. It made me, a lot of people fuck on it. I was celibate during my whole crystal period. I was a tweaker. I mean, I was a collager. I liked like refinishing furniture and, you know, taking apart electronics and stuff like that. I always knew I was a drug addict, and I was sort of okay with that. And I made peace with the fact that like, I was going to need this to be on the planet, to be okay, to be in my skin. I have a lot of alcoholism in my family, a lot of addiction in my family, a lot of mental illness in my family. I've been in 6 rehabs. I've been in 4 psych wards. When I use, I end up in the ER, or I try and kill myself within weeks. I've gotten large periods of sobriety, like years, and relapsed. And knowing that it wouldn't be different, which is really scary, you know, but just thinking, I can't feel this. I think that, you know, it escalated as it does. You know, I think it was in my second rehab that I relapsed 3 days out, and I started shooting. I started doing intravenous drugs, which is like a whole other ball of wax. And by this point, I already had epilepsy from crystal meth abuse. And, you know, you shouldn't really shoot coke when you have epilepsy. I mean, shooting coke, you can have a seizure anyway, but especially when you have epilepsy, it's like double the chance. And I tell this story a lot because it's so outrageous, but it's so true. So I'd shoot coke and I'd have a seizure. And instead of thinking, hey, you know, you shouldn't shoot coke with a seizure disorder, I shot coke wearing a bike helmet, because then I thought if I fall over, I won't crack my head open. And it made perfect sense. I was like, you know, shooting coke, it's a high impact sport. I wear protective gear. It made total sense to me at the time, because that's the nature of addiction, is like, how do I get what I want and avoid all the consequences? I had 7 years without the program. You can do it. I was extremely unhappy and I didn't grow. And I don't think AA is the only way to get sober. It's the way that worked for me. I'm really an asshole without that sort of like moral compass and that plan of how to behave in the world. I'm just innately selfish and entitled. So I grew up pretty wealthy in Beverly Hills. I went to the best schools and summer camps. And, you know, my parents split when I was 2. From a very early age, I had that feeling that everyone talks about of like not being enough and being on the outside and feeling weird. And I mean, bottoms, there's been so many bottoms. The real bottom happened and was, you know, we're talking about having people finding things to fix us. I didn't want to fix myself, and I did not want to be self-supporting. So I had a trust fund for many years, and then I married this rich guy, and I thought, he's going to fix me. He's going to take care of me. And I relapsed in that marriage on OxyContin. that they'd given me for shoulder injury. And I thought, oh, I don't like opiates. I'll be fine. But of course, once that veil goes up between you and the world, you know, your allergy and your obsession kicks in and you're like, oh my God, I want to, you know, forget it. This is it. And I pulled a knife on him on Christmas of 2011. And he called the cops on me, as he should have. And I got arrested for felony domestic violence with a deadly weapon. And I went to jail.
Wow.
Yeah. My parents were so proud. It was, you know, I was magna cum laude. I mean, this was the last thing they ever thought would happen to me. I'd never been arrested before. Drugs make me into a monster. I mean, whether I would have done that or not without being high, I have no idea. I really hope not. I was abusive in that marriage. I wasn't a good wife. I will admit that. I went to jail and eventually lost everything. My marriage, my sanity, my sobriety. You know, I ended up I tried to kill myself for the third time. I ended up penniless in the psych ward, you know, went into my 6th treatment center, relapsed there, got sent to another sober living, relapsed there. And finally, when sort of no one, you know, my father said to me, you've been draining me financially and emotionally for years. I'm over it. You know, call me when you have good news or don't call me. And I think that when everyone stopped trying to fix it for me and I had to face really the full consequences of my actions and take care of myself financially and also do 240 hours of community labor, which is not community service. Community labor is like, you know, sweeping trash. So it's like me and like 40 Mexican guys. And they're like, what you here for, Weta? I'm here for a DUI. And I'm like, I'm here for domestic violence with a deadly weapon. They're like, oh shit, you know. And I had more time than anyone else. I was like one of the only people there for assault. It was so humbling. I mean, it was really exhausting and no one would talk to us except for bums. They were just like homeless drunk people would be like, good morning. And everyone else was like, you guys are criminals. And you're like sweeping human shit on the sidewalk. And I was living in a sober living. Yeah. I was living in a sober living for 2.5 years and writing and going through a horrible divorce and did a year of domestic violence and going through the whole criminal court thing. And I just had this shift and it was, you know, I was sweeping the streets one day. I remember this and I was feeling really sorry for myself because I'm in my 40s and I was like, I used to have everything and meh, 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 you know. And I thought, wait a second. This is your fault. This is all, you know, the consequences of your decisions and your actions. And this can be the best thing that ever happened to you, or it can be the worst thing that ever happened to you. And you get to decide what that is. Like, there are lessons here. Do you want to embrace the lessons? You know, it was like, I was like, I don't ever, you know, my whole thing was I never wanted to take care of myself. And the universe was like, oh, really, bitch? Okay. Here, I'm going to take everything from you and you're going to learn how to fucking take care of yourself. And so I babysat for $10 an hour. I did whatever I needed to do to make money, you know, and while I was sweeping the streets. And it created a shift in me. It created compassion. All the things I thought would never happen to me, someone like me, happened to me. And then I wrote the book because I finally sort of had an arc. It was like I'd had a real shift. Like that spiritual awakening came from sweeping bum poo. I don't know what to say. Like that really was my
I can't imagine not having a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, you got to. Otherwise, you're just like, you know, I'd come home and I had leaves in my hair. And, you know, I was just filthy and it was exhausting. And, you know, all the girls in my sober living were just like, oh my God, my spray tan's too dark. And like, you know, this guy on Facebook, you know, blocked me. And I was like, oh my God, shut up. I've been sweeping syringes and used condoms and shit for 8 hours in the sun.
Oh, God.
I'm a working man. I want, you know, silence and a sandwich and a blowjob. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, it just shifted everything. You know, before I was like, I need that Marc Jacobs bag. And then I was just like, please let me get through this day of community labor. You know, it just shifted my entire perspective on everything. And that was this sobriety, and it's been completely different from any other sobriety because I got really humbled. on a level I've never been humbled before. And I don't, when this heartbreak came, I mean, of course, the pain was so great. Heartbreak is terrible. And my first thought was, oh, I gotta kill myself. Oh, and my second thought was like, I gotta use. And I was like, no. We're gonna do what normal people do. We're gonna feel our feelings. And I cried a sea of tears, and I lost 15 pounds, and I started smoking again. And I was like, but I got through it, and I didn't pick up. And I was like, okay, normal people have heartbreak and they don't put a fucking needle in their eye. You know what I mean? Like, let's get real. Like, so I just wasn't willing to burn my life to the ground again. And plus I had a recovery memoir coming out, can you imagine? Right? It's like, hey, our author couldn't be with us, but she's Skyping in from her 8th rehab. Amy, are you there? You know what I mean? Like, how horrible. Like, how mortifying, it took me I just couldn't do it to my publishers. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it to my family. And I couldn't do it to myself. I mean, as you get older, your body can't handle it the way that, it's a miracle I'm alive. Like, people read my book and they're like, it's crazy that she is actually still alive, let alone sober.
What is the craziest, we've kind of, we've got the picture, right? I mean,
that was really bad.
When you're sweeping up people's shit and use condoms and syringes, and you get home smelling like ass every single day, and you get, just buckets of humility that just get poured all over you. That's obviously one of the worst of it. But what were some of the moments where you were high, where you really fucked up, and you knew you were caught in a tailspin, right? And it was one of those moments where you're like, I got to get out of this thing. I got to get out of this thing, or I'm going to die, right? Like, take us into that pit of despair. One of your pits of despair. What were one of those moments?
God, there are so many. I mean, honestly, there was, they were staying up for 17 days on crystal meth and thinking that and writing a new Bible, okay, based on Emerson and Nietzsche. Yeah, thinking that you had the mathematical equation for God. Hey, hello. It's a bottom,
That is a bottom.
I remember being on crystal and I'd stay up for 5 days in a row, and I would just lay in the bathtub all night, smoking speed, crying. And I knew I had to get clean, and I was afraid. I was so depressed already on crystal. I thought that if I got off it, that the despair would overwhelm me and I'd kill myself. And what happened was I walked into a market and I woke up in an ambulance. And the paramedic said, "Did you do any drugs tonight?" And I said, "Obviously some really shitty ones, because here I am, such a dick, right? Always such a dick, just such a dick." And that was the first seizure. And then I didn't have seizures till I was about 5 years clean, living in Paris. And then they started up again. And grand mal epilepsy. And I have to say, I really remember that moment of shooting cocaine in my kitchen and having 2 seizures back to back. Like, I shot up and I had a seizure, but it wasn't a full seizure. I didn't lose consciousness. And I was like, okay, that was just too strong of a shot, just more water, and I just shot up another thing and I did it again. And I guess I had called someone in the program and was like, I'm going to fucking die. Like, I need help. And I shot up again and I had another grand mal seizure. And someone from the program came over, but I didn't hear him because I was having a seizure. And he came in and he threw away 30 needles and flushed $200 worth of cocaine. And he walked into my house and he said, "It smells like death in here." Ugh. He's like, this could have been one of those moments where, remember that girl, Amy? Well, she overdosed and died last night. He was like, "It absolutely smells like fucking death in here." And I was like, I started going to meetings. I'd been very resistant to AA prior to that also, Now,
had you had the resistance? Was it based on some negative experiences you had, or was
it was just based on, I'd been introduced when I was 24 and I'm 48 now. So it's like, back then when you're a tweaker and you're at an AA meeting, they're like, are you an alcoholic or not? They're like, really? And I start crying, that kind of stuff. And I thought it was creepy, and I thought it was super God-centered. And I was like, this is a creepy cult. And it's like, it wasn't until I remember this girl called me. My friends were like, you're going to die. You're going to die shooting cocaine in your house by yourself. You're going to die. And she had a girl call me who had 3 years at the time, whose parents had bought a mortuary, had bought a plot at the cemetery. They were so convinced she was going to die because she'd stroked out smoking crack a bunch of times. And I never met her, and she called me and she just told me her story, and I could hear her. And she said, do you want to meet me at a meeting? And I was like, okay. And I met her at a meeting, totally arms all bandaged up, covering like a zillion track marks. Like, even though I have really big veins, I was really a bad junkie. It's like, I was really bad at it. And I showed up at the meeting, and I started crying. I just was like, oh my God, this is me.
When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah, I could hear it. And I'm sure that was what they were saying 20 years prior, but I couldn't hear it then,
So, I'm curious. I wrote some stuff down here. How much jail time did you have?
I only had 5 hours. My mom bailed me out. So this is actually a funny story. So it's Christmas, and only real assholes get arrested on Christmas. Okay, so I was so high. I mean, as soon as he called the cops, my ex called the cops, I took even more drugs, because I was like, well, if the cops are coming, I got to be really relaxed, And of course, like, that's just like the worst thing to do ever, and they're like, you have the right to remain silent. And I was like, Law and Order is my favorite show. I know the drill. It's like, oh, great. And, you know what I mean? Like, what a dick.
I love it.
It's such a dick. And they're put me in the back of the car, and they handcuffed me. And I'm just trying to talk my way out of it. I'm like, I got the gift of the gab. I'm like, maybe we were just jousting, and I'm like trying to just like do anything. And I'm like, I'm from Beverly Hills. I went to college, and crying. And they just wouldn't have any of it. So I called, so you're put in a cell. They take your mugshot, and you're put in a cell. And I was in shock. I mean, I was really high, and I was totally in shock. And I remembered that one of my old sponsees had become a bail bondswoman. So I called her, and I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years. And I was like, hey, she's like, oh my God, my old sponsor, Merry Christmas. And I was like, I'm in jail. She was like, oh. So she arranged with my mom, and they bailed me out within 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to write this down here. This is what we call a God shot.
Yeah.
That is one of those moments. You were talking about in there writing the book, right? At what point in all of this craziness did you start writing this book?
I've been writing for the Fix, and I've been chronicling all of my sort of relapses and psych wards and everything that was going on.
No shit.
Everything that had been going on the whole time. Yeah. So, and people, and also, so it was like, it was just time. I mean, Fix readers were like, I want more, like, write a book. And so I had been chronicling a lot of this stuff for years, like my depression and my drug use and my suicide attempts. And so I had that stuff, and I had my Fix articles, and I was allowed to use pieces of Fix pieces. And, I was introduced to an agent through another sober person, and he loved my stuff and was like, pitch me your idea. And I said, it's framed around community labor. And, it's like, I'll see something on sweeping the streets, and it'll, flash me back to another time in my life using. And so it's not a linear memoir, because those are boring, first of all. And also, if I was going to do a linear memoir, it's 20 years. Like, oh my God, people would just be like, does she ever get sober? Like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, kill me. And it's funny too, because I knew there's really, really dark stuff in there. Like, I took a box cutter to my wrists and stuff at one point. I slit my wrist with a box cutter. And
so you did one of those. You actually went.
Oh yeah, I went for it.
You tried. You were serious.
Yeah. And there was another time I took 30 phenobarbital and was like, bye. Yeah.
How'd you get out of
unstable.
so those are two nasty attempts that, you know, would take a lot of people out, you know? So what went wrong in the attempt?
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I've been on epilepsy meds for so long, and I was such a hardcore drug addict that even those 30 pills, they were monitoring me, and all my like major organs were fine. Like I was loaded out of my tree, but they were like, we don't even need, like, they took 2 hours before they even charcoaled me. They were like, she's a fucking drug horse. Like, oh my God, look at this tolerance. Also with the box cutter, I went this way, and I guess you're supposed to go that way. I wasn't really, you know, and then they stitched me up and whatever. And I just didn't know how to be on the planet, you know? I just did not know how to be. I did not know how to function. did not know how to navigate in the world. I didn't know how to make my own money. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I felt very overwhelmed by my feelings. I just didn't, you know, I didn't have the manual. And, I mean, I don't know why I'm still alive after, you know, I also, you know, after one psych ward visit, they screwed up my seizure meds, and I had a seizure, and I fell backwards, and I cracked my head open. And I came to, and they're stitching my head closed. Yeah. And I was in the hospital for 8 days.
That's wild.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's gnarly. Yeah. 50 and 5150 is not fun. I mean, that's a big part of it. I think normal, you know, not like for us, it is. A lot of people have been like, oh yeah, I've been in the psych ward. But when you date like normies and you're like, oh, I was, you know, in the nut house, they're like, okay, check please. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not a normal part of their experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that for a first date topic. Probably want to avoid that one.
Yeah, but now everything's out. It's in my book. Everyone knows everything.
Yeah, but now that you're an author and there's a book out, there's a lot of grace. There's a lot more grace. You're like, I love that part of your book. You know.
I know. God, it's like, oh. Yeah, I love that part in your book when you fucked that guy at the Comedy Store and you called you big homie afterwards. It's like, oh God. Don't you want me to meet your parents? I'm great girlfriend material.
You know what I love the most about your story is the awareness. All right. So the awareness and the recognition that there's so many lessons that you needed to learn, so many lessons, and you actively went seeking those lessons, right?
Eventually. I mean, I tried to avoid them as, you know, I knew what they were, and I was like, I'm going to dodge this shit. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. But that's I think the universe, you know, we're here to learn certain lessons, and you can't avoid them. You know, I met my destiny on the road I took to avoid it. Mm-hmm. I really did. And it's like, you know, the wake-up calls get gnarlier and gnarlier and gnarlier until you finally go, okay, you know, fuck. I will do this. I will learn this. I will change this. And, you know, I needed to drop all that entitlement, you know. It was like, and I needed to take care of myself. And so it was like, yeah, I always had awareness. I don't know if that was helpful or made it more painful, you know. Especially also having time in AA and then going out and using. Wow, that's a bummer. You know, like, you know, when you're using with a head full of AA, ooh, you know better. You know how full of shit you are.
Yes.
That's where you were.
No, and it's just a miracle that we've survived all these things. But my point of view is always the same. If you're still alive, you have a message. You have a powerful a powerful message that you need to share to all the people in recovery. They need to hear these stories to know that just like you did, just like when you went to that meeting, you know, after going to AA and like this is not cool, and then all of a sudden connecting with someone that was telling your story and you going, I belong here. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that for at least the feedback I'm getting from the book is like, people appreciate my brutal honesty. You know, I'm really raw. It's like, I'm not trying to look good in the book. I talk about some really, like, that's stuff where I was like, I don't want to write about that. Like really mortifying sexual shit that I did in my sex addiction. I was like, that's the shit you need to put in the book.
that's going to help someone. And I did. And it's like, I mean, if you're trying to look good in an addiction memoir, come on, you're not being honest enough, you know? So people seem to really, they're just like, thanks for keeping it real. Like, thanks for your rawness and being authentic and, you know, and your humor, because it's hard, you know, you got to laugh at some of this stuff. Otherwise you're just, you know, it's the only way to get through. And also I think the fact that I was such a retread, you know, it's never too late. If you're alive, you can still get this.
Absolutely.
I really believe that. I
Yes.
really believe that. There's
100%.
never, if you are alive, you absolutely can still get recovery. You can get sober.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
You know,
what I want to know is, you know, you've got 5 years now. I want to know what it was like that first year, because you talk a lot, I'm sure in the book, there's a lot of that first year stuff. You talk about your Black, gay, lesbian sponsor. Was that right?
yes.
Okay.
Well, gay, lesbian is the same. Yes.
Okay.
Little,
yeah, that was a little redundant. No, it's actually very redundant. Okay. So you've got this experience, right? So tell us about that first year and all the craziness.
The first year was awful. I mean, the first year is awful. It is awful. I never had a pink cloud. I've never had a pink anything. Like, I just, you know, it was real. I cried every fucking day. It was so fucking uncomfortable. And there were times when I would just, you know, have to go to the movies and sit on my hands. I mean, I wasn't someone who was just like, it was lifted immediately and things were wonderful. It was like that first year of this 5 years, I was in a sober living, and it was a wonderful sober living. And it was the opportunity I got to really connect to and love women. Because before that, I didn't really like chicks. I was like, I'm a dude, you know, inside, and all my friends were dudes. And I was like, chicks, you know, and we had like a real sisterhood, and that was awesome. I was very depressed. I mean, like I said, I was going through divorce, and I was going through a criminal case. And I felt that was really when I think my sex addiction was at its worst too. And so then I started going to SLAW and SAA and all that kind of stuff. Because
what was your experience in SLAA?
That program I don't like that program. That program for me was first of all, they're like, you can't talk to men for 30 days. I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me. You know, it's like, you know, and it was a little extreme, and it felt like it pathologized things too much. And I found it a little triggering, honestly. I would like leave a meeting and I'd be setting like a hookup. And it's hard to take that whole thing seriously as like this life-threatening illness, like when you've like, you know, overdosed and died. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm like, really, guys? You know? So, and then I end up in SAA, which is Sex Addicts Anonymous. And it's like me and 12 dudes in a room, you know? And I was like, you know, they're like, oh, a woman, that's so great. Welcome. And I just cried through the whole, you know, and they're talking about prostitutes and jacking off and Craigslist. And I'm like, I don't really relate. I just want love. And I don't know. I met this guy on Tinder, and he spooned me, and then he never called. And I just, you know, I just didn't, it was not. You know, and my sponsor was just like, you know, this is all part of your alcoholism. Just work the steps and all that other shit will fall away. And that's what happened, really. You know, I also hit a bottom with that, and that's in the book. No pun intended, where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is so demeaning. And I just didn't recognize myself. And it's like, you know, just now I don't even recognize that person. It creeps me out so much.
So when you finished the book, how much time did you have when you finished the book?
I turned it in last November, and it was published this past September. So I had, I guess, a little over 3 years, maybe.
Okay. All right. So you were able to chronicle through the drug use and the rehabs and the meetings and the sobriety and the first part of it and the sex addiction. It's jam-packed with.
Oh, it's quite a ride, the book. Yeah. It moves very fast. You know, yeah.
Well, you know, our listeners are the ones that I listen to. One of their favorite reads is Sarah Hepela's Blackout.
It's the same. We have the same publisher.
Okay. So they're going to love it. They're going to love it. They're big on these. I can't wait to get the audio version. I didn't know there was an audio version. And that's how I listened to it.
Yeah, I narrated it too. So that's pretty cool. You
Okay.
get to hear my manly voice and all my bad impressions. It's fantastic.
The more fun you can have in recovery, the better.
You have to laugh. You have to. Otherwise, like, why even be here? You know what I mean? It's just, I mean, my using was never fun. I was never like a party girl, like, oh, I'm, at, Paris Hilton's doing coke. I was always like in my house, like by myself, snorting meth or shooting up by myself. It was never a party. It was always, self-medication and slow suicide. It was never fun. I missed that part. It just, it skipped, it never was. I could never moderate enough to be, you can't show up to a party with like a bunch of syringes and be like, what's up, guys? I hope people are like, oh my God. It's just, it was always really dark.
Some of us have a natural progression that leads into it, and some of us just are a rock star from go.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
It
was just like a rocket. As soon as I picked up, it was like, bam! And I was like, and then I just struggled a lot with it.
Well, and I remember the first time, like for me, I had spent a good 10 years of my life, at least the first 10 years of me drinking was just the alcohol and weed. And, I could moderate that to a point. I mean, I was a blackout drinker, and those were, I ended up getting DUI and that kind of a thing. Right. But I never really categorized myself as an alcoholic. And the first time I did cocaine, I was using every single day. Like it went from, it was that moment where it was like, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life.
Of course.
That's
what, I mean, I've heard that a lot, that coke is what brings people into the rooms. It fucking just like, because you can drink even more and blah, blah. But like, I never liked weed ever, but it's like, I still smoked it and I would smoke it every day, even though I hated it, because I just wanted to feel different.
Yep.
I just wanted to feel different in the way I felt. And I thought I could do it on one of my relapses because I hated it. Like, I can smoke weed. I hate it. It'll be fine. And of course, it's never fine. It's just never fine.
I even remember wanting to start my own religion. So when I heard that in your story
about high on cocaine, or this is in general?
Oh no. 4 days in a drug-induced psychosis, and I call my future father-in-law and tell him that I wanted to start a new religion.
Oh God, dude! He still let you marry his daughter? That's
I still remember his wedding toast. He was wasted. He was drunk. It was the first time I'd ever seen him drink. And he drank on our wedding, and he was like, the closing part of his speech was, and if anything goes wrong, I'm an attorney. So it was like, I remember my sister going,
oh my God.
My sister going, was that a bad joke or was he serious?
Oh my God, terrifying.
Oh, it was just fucking priceless. So I'm going to start closing up, Amy. And what I want to do is I want to ask you some questions about your early recovery. And I want you to respond with some answers that where you can inspire our newcomers. Are you ready?
Okay, of course.
All right, wonderful. So, what was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
Thinking that I could moderate it. It's much easier to just be abstinent than it is to moderate it. It's too hard to moderate it. I kept thinking that I could moderate it. And I think that's hard also for people who are bingers, who don't use every day. It's harder to, also, it's really easy to pick out stuff in the rooms that you don't like. People, personalities, that kind of stuff. Ooh, they said God. They said my creator. They said our father, and I'm Jewish. And it's like, take what works for you and throw away the rest. Look for the similarities, that kind of stuff. I mean, for me, it was like, also, I wanted to do it my way. And I was like, why do I have to get a commitment, sweeping, putting chairs away? What does it have to do with staying clean? And it's like, it's very Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, you know, it's like you think you're waxing someone's car, but you're learning fucking karate, you know, you're learning humility, you're learning discipline, you're learning how to show up, you know, that kind of stuff.
That's perfect. That was actually
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. You know, I hope you guys were paying attention. Rewind this, right? That's exactly what it's all about, right? It's about the wax on, wax off. Stop asking so many questions. Stop
Yeah, just
asking
do it.
why and just ask how. That's it. You know, like they say, like the old school guys say, you know, take the cotton out of your ears and stick it in your mouth. Right? Because we have, you know, we want to complain about everything and look at all the differences.
You know, letting your feelings. It's like, feelings aren't facts. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was like, you know, it's like, fuck your feelings and do what you need to do. You know, if you're waiting to feel ready to do something, to get sober or go to a meeting or go to the gym, you're going to wait forever. You take the action, it changes your feelings. You know, there's an element of cognitive behavioral therapy to AA. You know, It really is acting yourself into right thinking.
Yes.
And it's like, we get so caught up in our heads and our feelings, and you know, it's just, you can't listen to that shit. You know, and the best part, I think, also of the program for me is, you know, well, besides the steps, which have totally changed my life and changed my personality completely and made me into a good partner and made me realize I wasn't who I thought I was. And I mean, it's free versus buying, you know, Peru for a fucking therapist, you know, over 10 years of analysis or whatever, is the fact that there's fellowship. There's other people that get it. They're not judging you. You know, those are the people that'll help you move. Those are the people that are going to fucking, you know, take you to the airport. Those are the people you can call at 3 a.m. crying, and they're going to be there for you. You know, and it's like that fellowship of other people who think the way that you think is fucking amazing. You know, it really is. It's like, just, you know, you don't have to feel alone. You're not alone anymore. And that was a big part of my thing, was feeling really lonely and special snowflake syndrome. You know, I'm different. No, you're not, bitch. You know,
terminally unique.
You know, yeah, that was a big one for me too. Well, I have mental illness and I'm this and it's like, shut the fuck up and just do this. And it's like, you know, and if AA doesn't work for you, there's refuge recovery. There's fucking all kinds of different things. There's smart recovery. There's harm reduction. That would have never worked for me. But it's like, just, you know, forget it. Like, I don't even under that concept is like, huh?
Yeah.
But for some people it works. It's like, you know, but just get into action. I think that's the big thing, is like, you know, you take action over and over and over again, and it actually changes your neural pathways. And it's like, I mean, one sponsor said to me, you know, I used to be very into my truth, you know, and I was like, well, that doesn't feel true for me, you know, and it's like, and my one sponsor said, you don't have to be a good person. You just have to act like one. No one knows the fucking difference. And it's like, that really clicked for me. It's like, you know, action is character. You are the way you behave. No one gives a shit about your intentions. They care about your action. Sorry, I meant, no. Did you show up or did you not show up? Did you do it or did you not do it? No one cares about your intentions. You don't get a pass because you know, and you don't get a pass for being an asshole because you have alcoholism either. So it's like, so that was the big thing, was just like, you know, acting like the person I wanted to be, and eventually you become that person.
I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. A lot of takeaways there, listeners. So I hope you're listening, taking notes. All right. So at what point, Amy, did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery, where you realized for the first time that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but had developed the hope that you could recover?
Well, I always knew I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. That was never, ever a question. I just didn't care. I was like, I'm going to die this way, and that's fine. I surrendered to my addiction. I was like, oh, I'm an addict. And I almost was like proud of it in that weird way. You know what I mean? Look at my track marks. I mean, I had recovered before, and I'd had like 3.5 years or 4 years or, you know, 1.5 years. So I knew it was possible to recover. And I also believed other people, like, they had recovered. So you have to sometimes just believe that, you know, but, I think for me, my aha moment was really sweeping the streets. That moment where I just went, wait a second, I got to really reorient the way that I think about myself, who I am and how I relate to the world, because shit's not working. It's like if I'm
No
42,
pun intended.
you know what I mean? If I'm fucking 42, sleeping in a single cot, in a shared room for 2.5 years, sweeping poo, like your way is not, you know what I mean? And I just thought, okay. And I just really I got a really hardcore sponsor and got really involved and got really humbled. That's what I needed. I needed to be really humbled.
Absolutely.
I needed all those things that I thought I was like, oh, that won't happen to me. That I was immune. It's like, wow, all those things happened to me. Everything I judged, I became. Everything that I thought that wouldn't happen to me happened to me. And it's like the bottom kept, it was like those magic rooms where you think there's a bottom and it drops out. It's like a false bottom, and it's like another bottom, and then there's another. You know what I mean? It was like, and also people stopped fixing me. They were over it. They were just like, fuck you, I'm done trying to fix you or do it for you. You do it for yourself. You're a smart girl. You can do it for yourself. And I needed that. I was lazy and I was frightened and I was entitled and I didn't think I could do things for myself. And so I got to a place where I had no choice.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So
tell our listeners the best way to reach out to you, to find you, and tell us a little bit about the book and where to find it.
The book is a dark, funny addiction memoir with a happy ending. It's very graphic.
Yes.
Yeah, it's psych wards and sex and drugs and seizures and rehabs, and it's and it's really funny also. It's at Amazon all over the nation. It's at Barnes and Noble, it's at Kobo, it's it's at IndieBound. I think they even sell it on like the Target website.
I love it.
You can find me on Twitter at Amy Dresner. I'm on Instagram at Amy Dresner, which people are like, it's too many pictures of your cat. You're crazy and annoying. But it's like, I also have book stuff there also. I'm just not sorry. I don't want to, it's not like 75 pictures of me. Like, I don't, I just joined Instagram because my publisher was like, you need to join Instagram. I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
it's huge.
I like my cat. I don't know. I mean, I love my cat, I think pets are very soothing for people that are in recovery or for loneliness and for when you live alone, pets are awesome.
People click on pets. They love cats and dogs.
Like,
They love it.
It's like the pictures are really fucking funny. Colonel Puff Puff's hilarious, man.
Is that his real name?
Yeah.
Colonel Puff Puffs. How long you had him? Did you name him when you were still loaded?
No. So I was like, he has a mustache, and I was like, oh my God, he looks like a colonel, and he's fluffy, and I was like, Colonel Puff Puff, and I thought I'd made it up. Where are you going? Oh.
Here's a Colonel Puff Puff for you right here. This is Rumi.
Oh. Where is Colonel Puff Puff? He's like, fuck you, Mom.
He's actually being
I thought I made up the name, and I thought I was so brilliant, but it's actually my father's childhood soldier's doll's name from when he was a kid. That was in Zorro the Gay Blade. My dad wrote Zorro the Gay Blade, and in it is a line about Colonel Puff Puff, and that's the name of his doll when he was a kid, his soldier doll. And I thought I'm just like ripping off my dad, and I think I'm being so creative and brilliant, right? Writers. I have a Amy Dresner official page. Usually if you send me a Facebook request on Facebook and we have 1 billion, sober people in common, or you send me a note and say, hey, I heard you on da-da-da-da, I loved it, I'll probably accept it,
Yeah, Facebook sometimes is, you keep
you know
it
what I mean?
private. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I know. I will have, go ahead.
Twitter and, on my website. There's you can contact me through my website. It's amydresner.com. You can see pictures of the chain gang. You can see pictures of my dirty feet. You can see the bad, like weird, creepy, dark penis art I did in rehab, like with syringes and knives. And oh my God, I was so disturbed.
Dude, that's so wrong. All right, what I will do, folks, is I will list all of these links on the show notes, the website, the social media, the book link, everything. So go to the Share Podcast show notes for Amy Dresner, and I will have all that information listed. All right. So, Amy, 2 more questions for you.
Yes, sir.
What is the best suggestion you have ever received?
Again, it's something my dad said, and it's in my book. And it is that discipline creates stability. Stability doesn't create discipline. And that goes back to what I was talking about before, which is like waiting to feel okay to do something. It's that routine and that structure that creates that sort of evenness. Now, you can't wait for the evenness. You create the evenness through the discipline. And it took me 20 years to get that. He said that to me and I was like, yeah. Discipline creates it. But that's really key to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's heavy. I know. It's so heavy, right? But it's so true. It's so true.
It's very similar to what we just talked about as well, which is you can't think your way into better acting. You have to act your way into better thinking. Yeah. And the idea of discipline and stability being something that we seek, but one can't come before the other, which is...
we're always waiting to feel okay before we do something.
Right.
You'll never feel ready. You will never feel okay. You do it and it changes the feeling. It took me so long to figure that out. And I'm not always perfect with it. Believe me,
Who is?
It's like...
That's why but we have a sense of resilience. For those of us that survived the battle with drugs and alcohol, we have such a high tolerance for pain. We're resilient people.
Oh,
so, we can take lumps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can take lumps. All right. So number 5, what is the best? Well, I'm sorry. If you could give our newcomers only one suggestion, what would it be?
When you get an urge to use, buy yourself 20 minutes. Because I'm serious. Because it will pass whether you use or not. And if you use, you're going to open up that fucking vortex and then you're going to be on a run. Take a bath, watch something on Netflix, jack off, take your dog for a walk, take a nap, call someone, whatever it is. The urge will pass within 20 minutes, whether you pick up or not. And I can't tell you how many times it's like the urge has come and I just have sat through it and it passed. I'm like, woo, It's like you can stay sober whether you want to or not. That's the key. You're not going to always want to be sober. There's going to be times where you'll be like, fuck me. I want to get, man, I do not want to be here. I want to be high. I want to be loaded. But it's like, again, all that, those feelings pass, urges pass, feelings pass. Good stuff passes. Bad stuff passes. It's all temporary.
Buy yourself 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Do Gold. Your laundry, do your fucking laundry. I don't know. Organize
laundry
your
helps.
Spices. Whatever. Like just 20 minutes.
There is therapeutic value in doing laundry. I can't explain it.
I like doing laundry.
Yeah. There is something about making your bed and doing laundry that is therapeutic at a 10x level.
Messy bed, messy head.
Mm-hmm.
As I look at my totally messy bed right now, I can see it in the corner. Fucking bed that hasn't been made in weeks. Okay. Yep, messy. You got to make your bed every day.
Folks, do yourself a favor. Pick up Amy's book. It's, what a doozy. What a doozy. All right, folks, we have now reached the end of our show. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks. Oh, thanks for having me.
You're awesome. This far exceeded my expectations.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. It's so nice to have you laugh, too.
Dude, how could you not?
We have to laugh. We got to laugh at this stuff. Don't take yourself too seriously. It's like, it's the only way to get through. Believe me. I mean, that's why, when I was sweeping poo, I was like, I got to find some way to laugh at this because otherwise this is going to be like,
Folks, we have now reached the end of the shit show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida. So Amy, give us a pura vida.
Pura vida.
That was perfect. You been to Costa Rica?
No, but I used to be bilingual when I was little.
Oh,
I grew up in Guadalajara.
Oh, get out.
And Puerto Vallarta. Yeah.
Dude,
my mom speaks full Spanish. My mom lived in Oaxaca for 10 years.
Get out of the city.
That's why I knew what they were talking about on the Chain Gang all the time. I was like, I understand too much of what you're talking about. I know what chichenitas are, okay? Like,
easy does it, güera. Oh, man. All right, Amy. Thank you again so much for joining us.
For having me.
And we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good. Okay. Bye.
All right, ciao.
Mm-hmm.